Welcome to the Final Furlong podcast and our Dublin Racing Festival special. I'm Emmet Kennedy, joined by the author of the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide and one of the best minds in racing, Paul Ferguson. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hi, Emmet. Good to be back. Been too long. It was pre-season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pre-season and it has been too long indeed. But good news, Final Furlong podcast listeners. As usual, you will get your £5 gravy train discount on the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. If you don't know about the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide, again, Paul Ferguson, the main man behind it, and it's here to help you complete the Cheltenham Festival with every fact, stat. Last year featured gems like the banker or bus section from Roy Delarkey, daily tips from Sam Turner, spring horses to follow, selected stats and trends, of course, and it also includes the I.N.H Grand National Betting Guide, stats and trends for all the big races at Cheltenham, all the big races at I.N.H, and of course the crucial ones for the Grand National itself. It'll be going to print on Friday the 23rd of February, but act now to secure your copy. Weatherbyshop.co.uk. The all-important Final Furlong podcast gravy train code that you need is FF24CF. FF24CF. All capital letters, FF24CF. It'll get you £5 off the print copy, the digital copy, and the print and digital bundle. It is an essential read and an essential guide to the Cheltenham Festival for 2024. Order your copy now at weatherbyshop.co.uk using the code FF24CF and get your £5 discount. First live race we're going to look at is the 120, the 2 mile, 6.5 furlong, Nathaniel, Lacy and Partners, Solicitors, Novice Hurdle Grade 1. This has produced 4 different horses who have gone on to win at the Cheltenham Festival in the same season. Vanillier, who was beaten 59 lengths and finished 10th before going on to win the potato race. Let's Dance won the Dawn Run Novice Hurdle. Martello Tower was second before going on to win the potato race, and Windsor Park finished 4th before going on to win the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. This year's betting is headed by Predators Gold for Willie Mullins, 7-4. His backup comes from Loch Lynn. Patrick rides. Jatara for Rachel Blackmore and Jessica Harrington, a 9-2 shot. Another Willie Mullins horse, and I Will Be By in 11-2. You have to pronounce it that way. And Stellar Story, first-time cheek pieces for Jack Kennedy, a 10-1 shot. Dancing City, I think, is very interesting for Danny Mullins. The Donnelly team for Willie, a 20-1 shot. Paul, what's your overall view on the race?
We were just talking off air. I was thinking it was lacking a bit of depth maybe in previous years, but I had in my head that we've had bigger fields than this, but we just look back, the last couple haven't been, but some of the earlier races were, a couple of them you've touched upon. In fact, it used to be, prior to the Dublin Racing Festival, it used to be a race over 2 mile 4, and then the distance was extended when the Dublin Racing Festival was created. So occasionally it can be more now leaning towards an Albert Bartlett trial maybe than a Bear and Bingham, which is obviously the official title of the race we formerly know as the Ballymore, with no new sponsor at the minute, so if people are getting confused there. But start with the top of the market, Predators Gold. I think he's the one with real potential in there. I liked him when he won the Land Rover bumper at the Punchestown Festival. Thought he was really good on debut when he beat Mossy Fen Parker, came out and won. I think it was Boxing Day at Down Royal, he won it next time. So I just think it was a good piece of form. Took a big step forward, obviously, when runner up to Caldwell Potter. But once, obviously, he's got to prove his stamina. He's gone up from 2 miles, but it was best part of 2.5 at Punchestown first time out. But there's still a little bit of a doubt. And the one nagging thing I would have with the short price was he looked to have quite a hard race, I thought, at Christmas in pretty deep ground. But I think if there's a start over like the 2.5 mile, if someone's going to enter the picture for that Bear and Bingham race, I think he's definitely the one. Loch Lynn looks more of a staying type to me. I did like the way he won over Christmas at Limerick. He won that race that often turns into a good trial for various different races at Cheltenham. I think it's the Jaguar Alliance. Now it used to be the old Doran's Pride. But he travelled really well that day when he beat Stellar Story. Coming back in trip shouldn't be too much an inconvenience, I wouldn't have thought, because he went no sort of pace that day. I would expect him to uphold that form. The issue with Loch Lynn there is, again, if the ground, are we expecting them, looks like, listening to the weather forecast, I would expect the ground to start drying, if anything. It's saying it's officially soft at the moment, but it was pretty deep. As long as it doesn't dry out too much, I think he'll be fine. I think, I would have it between the Mullins pair, slightly unoriginal. Obviously, Jatara's there towards the top of the mark as well. She's fairly exposed now. She's got an official rating of 142, so obviously sets the standard by virtue of being allowed to take her chance in handicap company last time. Again, she's got stamina to prove for all that she wasn't stopping last time, and her winning has been done on heavy as well. So again, she's got a couple of question marks. Personally, I'd prefer to see one of the Mullins less exposed horses go on and win. With the future in mind, I think it'd be slightly disappointing if Chitara's able to fend them off.
Yeah, she's been beating mares as well, which is fine. She's a lovely horse, but it's just a different thing when you're taking on the geldings. If you're being completely fair about it, I thought Will Be Bye could be interesting for Brian Hayes and Willie Mullins. I really like that performance at Fairyhouse against My Trump Card. How do you value that form?
I'm not sure about My Trump Card. Seems to be extremely well touted. Those seem to have been well held in some regard. I thought he fell in really when he won his maiden hurdle. It was a bit of a scramble a time after, so I'm not sure I'd take that form too strongly personally. As I say, I think in terms of moving forward, if we are going to see a horse who's going to go on maybe and win at the Cheltenham Festival, I think you'd be looking at Predators Gold and Lachlan, but certainly in different races. Obviously, one over an intermediate trip, I would have thought. Lachlan, I would imagine, looks all over an Albert Bartlett contender. I think, if for me, say Predators Gold probably is the most likely winner. I think the market looks right, but I'd have that nagging doubt. I'm not sure I'd be taking too short a price about him after that hard race he's had. At Christmas, I think I'd be happy to watch.
I tend to agree. My Trump Card is held in such high regard. Why did he end up with Gordon Elliott? He's bred by Patrick Mullins.
True. People wonder why he rode him when he won a bumper the other week. I think that was the reason why, wasn't it? So,
that's why.
That's a good point. I had in my mind when looking at this race throughout the week, I thought Lachlan was probably going to be the each way bet. Really, I can't see him not running his race, but obviously there's only 6 now, so that takes that out of the equation. So it'd probably be I'll watch him briefly.
What did you make of Dancing City?
Obviously, you would imagine maybe he had some sort of setbacks. He's now 7, isn't he? So he's got plenty of ground to make up with Stella Story from their earlier meeting. Did it quite well again last time, but again, not much form on better ground. Certainly over hurdles anyway. His bumper form was on better ground, so possibly that'll be okay with him. So once you get into, I'm thinking for with my jumpers to follow hat on, like if you're looking at novice hurdlers at the age of 7, I do always have a question as to why. Maybe something's gone wrong in the past, or something's held them up slightly. And I think he'd be fairly down the pecking order amongst the Willie's runners here, to be honest.
Yeah, it's soft ground in 2 mile 6, and 3 7-year-olds have won this race in the last 10 years. Outlander for Willie Mullins, latest exhibition for Paul Nolan, and last year Goodland. And in the context of this race, his bumper form with 3-card Bragg and Ballyburn, I think, reads really, really well. The horse he beat was kicked out at touch the other day in a novice hurdle, so he definitely needs to improve on what he's done so far. But Danny Mullins on board, a 20-1 shot for Willie Mullins. He won this race with Manila Kakuna a couple of years ago, which Danny was on board as well. I can see him going off significantly shorter than the price he is now. I mean, he's really the only value play I can see in the race. If I'm going to have a bet in this race, Dancing City is the one who would intrigue me. And if he wins this, then he's going to take a massive step forward with a view to the potato race at Cheltenham, which for those of you who are new to the show is the Albert Bartlett. What impact do you expect this will have on Cheltenham?
We'd have to have a strong opinion if they were going to win, I'd say, on Saturday to begin with. But yeah, I'd probably be sitting waiting, to be honest. Predators Gold's going to have options. You never know, if he thrives for the trip, does that open up other doors for him? So yeah, I'd be personally, I'd be holding fire from that respect. And again, we haven't really touched on with Stella Story. He's got a bit of form that ties in with both. He looks more of an out-and-out stayer to me, so I think maybe a bigger field and genuinely testing ground might have suited him better and become a real test. So the way the races run might not necessarily see him to best effect, although see they putting cheek pieces on for the first time on Saturday.
Yes, cheek pieces first time. Jack Kennedy on board as well, and he's a 10-1 shot for Gordon Elliott and team. The 2 mile McCann FitzGerald Spring Juvenile Hurdle, grade 1. This is going to find out the pecking order amongst the Willie Mullins juvenile hurdlers. We'll see how good Calaconte is, but really we're looking to find something that can challenge Sergino, who was awesome on Trials Day at Cheltenham. And given the fact that Willie Mullins has won 3 of the last 4 runnings of the Triumph Hurdle, you would imagine it's going to be advantage Willie Mullins. All the wise guys kind of came unstuck here. Salvatore Mundi not declared. If you listen to Adam Mills on the show last week, he was advising Carkeezy as an Ante-Post bet for Cheltenham, and she's very much in here with Danny Mullins on board, which we predicted. And Marlborough was his Ante-Post play. That was his wise guy horse. Well, he's here, and Mark Walsh is on board, so that's going to be very, very interesting to see how he gets on. But the market is headed by Stormheart. Paul Townend rides. He's a 6-4 shot. He was really impressive on New Year's Eve, but that was a horrible race. That he's won by 97 lengths. It was very, very impressive, and he was well backed. But he beat trees.
He did, yeah. It was all a case of visual impression rather than any substance with Stormart. I thought the one element that was impressive, I thought, of the race was the way he quickened up late on and winged the last hurdle. I thought like the last half mile of the race was probably his best, so to speak. So I'm not surprised that Paul Townend has picked to ride Stormart, to be honest, just on what we've seen. Again, the ground's going to be quicker than it was that day, but his flat form in France comes on better ground. I had a little look at that earlier. So he should be able to handle it. As you say, this is definitely going to sort out the pecking order, and it looks like Willie's got the top 5 in the Carl Conti, 5 of the top 6 in the betting for this race on Saturday.
I mean, they could run it at Culsutton. Have Gordon can bring down Calaconti, Joseph can bring down Intello, and they could just keep things real simple. Noel Meade, who hasn't had a winner for 68 days since Noel Meade?
Yeah.
Jeez, that is not like him at all.
I think that includes his runners at Dundalk, doesn't it? Not that I'd be paying any attention to those flat runners, but I believe he's had quite a few. So, that would be a concern with his runner. As for what we've seen so far on the track, before we touch on the less exposed types, I think you just briefly touched on the Grade 2 at Christmas. It used to be the Knight Frank. I think it's the Mercedes South Dublin or something nowadays, where Calaconti beat Cargeese. Cargeese was quite keen through that race, so I can see why people think she'd turn a 4 around. She's £3 better off at the weights as well. If she settles in Danny's hands, I could see a good argument for them, and I think them two set the standard at the minute. So those are the solid pair. The fillies obviously getting the mare's allowance as well as the sex allowance, sorry. But in terms of looking ahead to the Triumph Hurdle, I think you'd probably be slightly disappointed if one of them was good enough to win, because does their form look like it's good enough to match up to what Sergino produced last week? I think we're going to need, for anything to have a shake-up in that Triumph market, I think we're going to need some sort of outstanding winner, or them two certainly put in place by one or two of the juveniles on this occasion. It's worth pointing out as well that this, in recent years, has been the best trial for the Triumph Hurdle. Obviously, it's a fine race in its own right and a Grade 1 that people will want to win, but when looking at Triumph, 8 of the past 12 Triumph winners have come out of this race, so including the last 3, obviously, and Lossiemouth was beaten in it last year. Several of them were beaten in it, actually, so say if you run well in defeat, certainly don't give up in terms of the trends.
Yeah, that's a really important point to make. Tiger Roll was second in 2014. Ivanovic Gorbatov was only 4th in 2016. Farcla was second in 2018, and Lossiemouth, of course, was very unlucky last year. They all went on to win the Triumph Hurdle.
I think Countrywide Flame as well was the other one. I haven't got them in front of me, but I think Countrywide Flame was beaten as well before he won. So, yeah, I say them two, they've got the experience, set the standard. But again, you'd be hoping one of these lesser exposed horses comes through. I can see why Stormart, he's obviously second favourite for the Triumph, so he's going to be favourite to win this. And see why Paul's took the ride. As you've said, of the two kind of elusive horses, it's Madgebury who makes his Irish debut. Possibly maybe the reason why that is he's won a race. He won a race in France, so it's no longer. So might think of him as Salvatore Mundi, even if he would have turned up when people were talking about him. I would imagine he'll be winning a maiden hurdle in May, and he's a novice for the whole of next season, really. So he might well have pitched up here, but I'd have taken it as a negative with him, because there wasn't the strongest of vibes when Willie was interviewed in one of his post-race interviews by Gary O'Brien after he had a winner recently. He was saying he was a bit slow to come to hand, and that would have been my take on him, that if he's only just making his debut now in this Grade 1, something must have gone wrong earlier in the season. As for Madgebury, he wore a hood when he won his sole start in France. In case people weren't aware, that's off on Saturday, but he was, I thought, just looked like he was a bit more about stamina on that occasion when he was well on top in the end. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. For a form line through that, Batman Girac, I know people have been talking about him as a possible Boodles Fred Winter contender. He was back in 6th that day, and then he obviously finished 4th behind Carla Conti and Cargeese in what should have been said was a really slowly run race over Christmas. He's got a mark of 1:31, so gives you a little bit of form line, and will give you hope that Madgebury has got certainly a good degree, good level of ability. But again, the fact he hasn't been out so far is probably would be a slight negative for me. That I don't think it would have been the plan at the start of the season to not run him until the spring juvenile hurdle. Maybe we should look at a couple of the other less exposed horses as well.
Yeah, it's just their hand is forced here. They don't really have a choice but to go and run because he can't.
Yeah, that's what I say. But yeah, of course, yeah. But he obviously can't go on a 4-year-old maiden now either. So he's probably forced into it. But again, that kind of makes me think: have they just rushed him to get him ready for this? The fact that we've never seen him in one of the early season graded races, which you would have expected, like Lossiemouth last year. He was out earlier, Fairy out, and then she ran the Christmas race before going on to here. So I think the fact that we haven't seen him suggests that either he's been given plenty of time to acclimatise, or just things haven't been totally right. The two I thought who were most interested in opposition to Stormheart were his stablemates Bunton, who I thought was really impressive at Limerick. Again, the ground will be a concern there, but I did sit back when I was watching that. I was at Aintree on Boxing Day, or St. Stephen's Day, and I took particular note and was keen to watch it back the next day when I was catching up. I thought he was pretty good on debut. Again, the ground be a slight concern there, and the other one, possibly the most interesting for me, would be High Wind, because he done so much wrong when he won a Punchestown first time out. A mistake at the last, and then he was still able to pick up. If he is able to improve, certainly got her in the jumping department, but if he is able to take a big step forward, it wouldn't be a huge surprise to see Rachel Blackmore takes the ride. So he'd definitely be an interesting one for sure. Yeah,
very much so. I think High Wind has kind of been highly touted already, and you can make your own mind up as to how impressed you were with his performance at Punchestown, but at least we know what he's done. We have some idea of what Bunting is capable of doing. You have some idea of what Stormheart is capable of doing. You have no idea how good Majbur is. It's a complete guess. And it's a complete guess as to how that French form is going to translate over into Ireland and the UK as well. And this is not an Ilete Tom situation. It's not that they're throwing him in here in Grade 1 company to see how he gets on. If he wins, it's a bonus, but he's going to be a novice next year. They're just forced into running him, which is the same with Bunting. He'd won in France as well, but I was really taken with him in Limerick. I watched it back this morning, Paul. Does jump to his right just a little bit towards the end of the race, but not enough to put me off.
Yeah, I noticed that, but then I think it might have been a case of could well have been excused for getting a little bit tired at that stage. On that ground, we all know what the ground's like at Limerick over Christmas, so certainly wouldn't be quick to write him off. I think Interlotto, you mentioned briefly, I think he deserves a mention. Obviously won a maiden hurdle over the course and distance. Again, he'd probably need to take a big step forward. Ethical Diamond reopposes there was a bit disappointing, I think, on the day. Better ground shouldn't be an issue for Joseph's horse. Although he was a maiden on the flat, he did run in quite decent races on better ground. So again, this really should be pretty informative. I'd probably say, in terms of competitiveness, and moving forward, this is probably be the most informative race of the day, I would have thought.
Oh, very much so.
Although we did say that last week ahead of, I'm sure most people said that last week before Sergino put Burdett Road well and truly in his place.
Yeah, well, to be fair, if you were with Sergino, you're in a great position now. You've got that big price, and you're never going to see that price again about him, at least in the juvenile hurdle division. We'll see how he progresses forward, but I can't back Stormheart in this race. It doesn't make any sense given the price he is. Visually very impressive. It's a massive bonus that Paul Townend has gone for him. He can secure his position, but any one of his stable companions may very well outperform him on the day. And as you said, then they can turn around at Cheltenham itself. I really like Bunting. I'd happily take 3-1 about Bunting, knowing he's Willie's number one, as opposed to getting stuck into him at 10-1 now. Yeah,
exactly. That's here we go. I'd just have a concern if the ground continues to drive with him. So that would be what, if the ground would have been deep and like it was at Limerick, I'd have taken a chance on him on Saturday. And actually, you could say that'd be something he'll be able to prove. One of these is going to step forward, and you're going to know that, say, assuming the ground is on the drying side, going to likely handle similar conditions at Cheltenham, which again is another tick in the box, which you'd rather see, I would have thought, at this stage. It's not like there's nothing burst onto the scene in England. Like you're going to be, whatever wins this is going to have to be seriously good to put a marker down against Sergino now anyway. So I wouldn't be looking at this stage to back anything against him in the Triumph Hurdle.
If you told Willie Mullins that Ethical Diamond would be a 40-1 shot before he'd made his hurdling debut at Leopardstown at Christmas, he'd have laughed at you. He thought this was the best of their juvenile hurdlers, and yet that's what he is now, an unconsidered 40-1 shot. Maybe he pulls it out of the fire. Bunting for me, for you?
Yeah, just on the ground. I'd probably, if I was forced to take a chance, I'd probably go with high wind. I say Storm half visually was good, but yeah, I'd be the same as you. I wouldn't be looking to take a short price in a field so competitive as this.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the Dublin Racing Festival. I'm really looking forward to seeing these races in action. I'm looking forward to being there on the Sunday. Come up and say hello if you're there. But this is a lot about just sorting out how Cheltenham's going to play out, and that's very much... This is going to tell us an awful lot about the Cheltenham Festival, this race. As will the Goffs Irish Arkle Novice Chase, which is not the massive matchup we were expecting. Gaelic Warrior does not go here. This is not good news for my Fact-to-File bet, by the way. More on that to come. But Marine Nationale is the 9-4 on favourite for the Irish Arkle. Facile Vega, Paul Townend gets a chance at redemption after last year's antics at the Dublin Racing Festival. 5-1 shot for him. Fascinating. Ruby Walsh is the best pundit in the game. No shadow of a doubt. But he is the absolute worst at predicting where Willie Mullins' horses are going to go. He's been saying, Facile Vega's gone up and trip and Gaelic Warrior's coming here. No. So Paul Townend on Facile Vega. Found a 50, grade 1 winner last time out. He's an 8-1 shot. He did jump out to his right, but still he was a grade 1 winner. And Ante-Post, who was massively gambled on in that Faugheen Novice Chase, which all the focus of attention then turned into what happened afterwards. And Patrick Mullins losing his mind. But Ante-Post was backed from 10-1 into 3-1 for that grade 1 Novice Chase and didn't run badly at all, I thought. First time tongue tie. Danny Mullins on board again, of course, and a grade 1 winner at the meeting last year. If there's a play in this race, for me, it's him.
I wouldn't disagree, to be honest. I wouldn't. Not saying by any means he's probably going to beat Marine Nationale, but he was the one I thought who had the potential to take a big step forward. I thought coming back in trip to 2 mile 1 was a definite positive. Given how he travelled up to that infamous second last fence at Limerick. He's not a horse I've ever been a huge fan of, to be honest, but he's and he wouldn't have been high on my list of novice chasers, but I've been quite impressed with him this year, to be honest. He was good first time out, and then you say he performed better than I thought he would against Gaelic Warrior for a long way, and I think the drop back in trip is a definite positive. He obviously beat Facile Vega last year, and in the pockets, obviously Facile Vega might have underperformed, as you could say he did do at Christmas. When beaten by Founder 50, I was just talking about different races like on Boxing Day, considering how positive I was about watching Bunting. I remember watching that race feeling quite underwhelmed about that grade 1 at Leopardstown over the same course and distance. And for me, I think conditions are going to be absolutely ideal for Marine Nationale, and if he jumps like he did on debut, he'll take the world of bean.
Oh, 100%. It's the price, Paul. Like he's priced up like he won the grade 1 Racing Post Novice Chase last time out, but he didn't. He won a nice Novice Chase. It was a fine performance. He didn't really learn a whole lot other than he can jump, but what happens when his jumping is tested? What happens when a horse takes him on for the lead? What happens when pressure is applied? We didn't learn anything about that. What's he going to find over fences? He's the best horse in this race. It really should be a case of Michael Sullivan's just blowing kisses to the crowd and in the champagne tent enjoying himself and dreaming of Arkle glory after this. But this is the Dublin Racing Festival, and this is going to be a competitive race. Founder 50 will set a good test out in front. He'll be a problem jumping out to the right. You don't want to be near him when he's doing that. They must be out to try and prove a point here with Facile Vega. Maybe I'm reading into this way too much. Maybe this is just very simple, shuffling the deck chairs. If you're going to send Gaelic Warrior to the 2 mile 5 grade 1 Novice Chase, you've also got Fact-to-File and Grange Clare West for that, and you can't really put Facile Vega in that race as well. What do you make of the fact that they're repeating the process and taking on Marine Nationale over 2 miles? We expected this was going to be the big clash at the start of the season in the Arkle, but we're getting it now.
Yeah, to be honest, I was slightly... I thought it was a decent performance first time. I only beat in the pocket, but the runner-up wasn't really delivered to lay down a challenge until really late, I didn't think. And it was his jumping. I wasn't overly fussed with it now. And I thought he screwed in the air a couple, and he just wasn't... It wasn't a debut performance in contrast to When you look at Marine Nationals, where you think he barely put a foot wrong, which is what you like to see, obviously. First time out of fences. This time last year, well, after the Dublin Racing Festival, I couldn't have had Facile Vega for the Supreme. He was backed into favouritism against Marine National. And maybe Willie will have worked his magic and get him back again. But really like what I saw over Christmas again. I was with Marine National in the Novice Hurdles last year, right the way throughout last season. And I think he's the faster horse out of the two. So I think if he jumps again, I think he'll confirm the form. And again, if the ground is drying, I think it's more in Marine National's favour than it is Facile Vega. I'd be more in the camp that he probably wants to go up and trip, and maybe if he is beaten here, maybe he will be then pointed towards the turners.
To be fair, you tried to talk me into Facile Vega this time last year. Just wouldn't listen. I wouldn't listen, but you tried. 4 horses have gone on to win at the Cheltenham Festival in the back of this race. All of them winning. All of them trained by Willie Mullins. Underso, Dovan, Footpad, and El Fabiolo last year. Is Facile Vega about to continue that? Is Il Était Temps about to? Or is Marine National just going to blow everything to pieces? He probably will if he stands up. And that's the same for many people with Galopin des Champs in the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup, 3 miles and half a furlong. He actually drifted for the Gold Cup in the back of his victory in this race last year. I thought he was very, very impressive. We couldn't get our heads around it. We all backed him and we were all in gravy. This year, though, he comes in as the 9-4 on favourite. He'd had an iffy start to the season after the defeat to Fast or Slow, today's rival again, in the John Durkin Memorial Chase, but then blew his opposition away, including Jerry Colomb, who ducks him here and just goes straight to Cheltenham, clinging to the hope that he's still a Gold Cup horse, despite all evidence to the contrary that he's fast enough to win it, and the real whacker has not done anything for that form either. If there's a bet in this race, it's surely Fast or Slow at 3-1, but the conundrum here is, did Fast or Slow beat a below par Galopin des Champs, or did Galopin des Champs benefit from the fact that he didn't have to face Fast or Slow the last day?
Yeah, it's a good point. If you're in a Fast or Slow camp, you'd be happy in a 4-runner race to take 11-4, 3-1. I'm sure he's already 2-0 up in the match there. I'd say Galopin des Champs was below par. I thought at Punchestown Festival, maybe the track again. I was maybe won over hurdles there, but he was beaten there again. The John Durkin by him, where you'd say he didn't jump well at all, Galopin des Champs, which was unusual. It was uncharacteristic around the jumping, I thought, that day. Obviously, the trip was against him, but you could say that about Fast or Slow there. You could say, I'm sure he'd be better over slightly further. But I think the performance, what we saw at Christmas and what we've seen in the Gold Cup last year, if that Galopin des Champs turns up, I think he will be very difficult to beat. And I think it's almost like a home match for him, isn't it? We were talking off air before when you were just mentioning about horses who went on to win at the Cheltenham Festival after running the Dublin Racing Festival. Obviously, he finished 6th, I think it was, in the Tattersalls Island 2 mile novice hurdle with one of the Sunday races, which we'll touch on shortly. I think that's his only defeat at Leopardstown. He obviously went
at 100-1.
Proved himself to be well handicapped in the mountain bike next time out, but over fences, he's 4 from 4 at Leopardstown. And I'd say arguably, Gold Cup aside, this is where his best performance would come. So it's a home match for Galopin des Champs, and on the back of that latest success, I think it'd be hard to beat.
Yeah, I think so too. Look, I'm a big Galopin des Champs fan, but if there is a bet in the race, it's Fast or Slow. That being said, if Fast or Slow is beaten here, does Martin Brazel persist with taking on Galopin des Champs in the Gold Cup, or does he reroute to a Ryanair, which has become more open now with Alaho out?
That's possible. Possible. So he did win that John Durkin quite impressively, really. I'd say he'd need to be fairly put in his place for them to consider it as an option. I'd say if he runs well and defeat behind him and gets to within a few lengths, I don't think it'll be considered, but maybe so. But with there only being a small field, the race mightn't be set up for Galopin des Champs to put on that performance like he did at Christmas, maybe. So I'd imagine Conflated will go out in front like he did for a long way in that race in his trial for the cross country. So
it's mad. He's taken the Delta Work route. 2022 Delta Work ran in this race, finished 6th, and then won the cross country in his next start. Is that what Cheltenham has become? You'd rather not compete in the Gold Cup, the biggest race of all. You'd rather compete in the cross country, where Galvin, Delta Work, and now Conflated will all face each other, as opposed to taking on Galopin des Champs. Kind of mad.
Yeah, it's mad. Like if you're competitive in Grade One races, should you really? I think that's a debate for another day, isn't it? Should you even be allowed to run in that race on the back of having run in a Grade One? I think maybe people are talking about stipulations for certain races, and there's been a lot of talk this week for the Mayor's Hurdle in relation to Lossy Mouth, and we'd obviously a lot of us would like to see her take on Constitution Hill and Champion Hurdle, but if the race option's there for them, you can understand her connections, taking the perceived easier option where she'll be a sure price favourite. But in relation to the cross country race, again, maybe there could be some sort of stipulation if you've run a Grade One so much in a short period of time before the race, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to enter it or something. I know the people are calling for it to be reverted back to a handicap like the races earlier in the season. Again, that would be another option, but whilst it's there and it gives the opportunity, Michael O'Leary and Ryan and Gordon certainly don't see him against putting a good horse in there. So you could say that they're making the most of a loophole, but all they're doing is run the horses where they can. But would racing fans, would you rather see in this instance conflated? Could you see him running? Could you see him going close in a Gold Cup? Probably not. So, but on the other hand, for the smaller yards who've got a runner in the cross country who's been aimed at the race all year, and then a Gold Cup also ran, or a Leopardstown or an Irish Gold Cup also ran, can just pop up. And so I say that's probably a debate for another day.
Yeah, Delta Work, Galvin, this fella conflated Manel Indo.
He's had the taking the path what some horses have done in the past, where he just have that one run earlier in the season as a little bit of a sighter for the course. We've seen that in the past. I know, like you touched on, obviously Delta Work went straight from this race and got a class angle. So if you see conflated run well against like Galop and Deschamps and fast or slow for a long way here, and then 6 weeks down the line, he's what price is he going to be in the cross country? So yeah, again, there's probably something that might need looking at in the future.
Yeah, I would imagine he will be very, very short. You're expecting Galop and Deschamps to win?
Yeah, I am. Just say it based on his record at Leopardstown and what we saw from him at Christmas. I know people seem to be debating what the official winning distance was, but obviously Capodanno came out and gave that form a solid look by winning at the trials there in the Cotswold Chase of the weekend. So whatever way you looked at it, you couldn't not be impressed with Galop and Deschamps over Christmas. And I say, like, arguably his best, visually some of his best performances have come at Leopardstown, and I would imagine he would turn the form around with fast or slow, personally.
Yeah, I don't think he underperformed in the Punchestown Gold Cup, because I don't think it's credible that both Envoy Elen and Brave Man's Game also underperformed that day, but he definitely underperformed in the John Durkin. So fast or slow will give him a proper race. He's going to be a test. I think he's a bet at 3-1. But look, Lizzie Kelly's going to disown me now, because I'm a proud member of the Galop on Deschamps fan club, and she's president of that, only because she got there before me. She got to the meeting before I could. Me, late to a meeting, never. So let's see how it pans out. It's going to be fascinating. If Fast or Slow wins this, that Gold Cup market is completely blown to pieces. The 440 on Saturday is the Donohue Marquees Future Stars bumper, Grade 2. And it is real exciting future star talent. We've got last year's leading bumper horse, A Dream to Share, and a leading bumper horse from 2 seasons ago, Redemption Day. Great. Spectacular.
And well, if we're talking about races and horses who maybe shouldn't be allowed in certain races, I think there's another potential example. So with the Dream to Share, that's some loophole. Are you allowed to? You can win the 2 Grade 1s and be running here off level weights with you ought to know who won 2 summer bumpers.
It's absolutely mad. The official rules say for 4 to 7-year-old colts and geldings only. Yeah,
I don't think there's a restriction on number of bumpers you can have run, in which there is in the champion bumper, and I think even in Punchestown, I don't think he'd be able to run. So it's great for young Gleeson, because he gets another spin on the star bumper performer from last season. And look, from the point of view of campaigning this horse, they can't go for a novice hurdle now. It's too late. He's still only a 6-year-old, and he's probably going to be a hurdler and not a chaser anyway. So just bring him back next season and make him a novice then. So it works in that regard. But Redemption Day, what's the excuse with him? He's a 7-year-old. I thought the whole point of running him in the bumper at Christmas was to get him out for novice hurdles. But here he rocks up here. I assume that was the case, to be honest. I thought, when we seen him there, I thought he'd next see him in an obviously, because you wouldn't have automatically necessarily thought that Redemption Day would be a prominent figure in the Supreme. He might well have done. But at the time, I think you can see, like you've said, with the Dream to Share, he was favourite for the Supreme for most of the autumn, even despite the fact that he continually said he'd had a setback and things. But even then, I was thinking, if you would have come out, if you win it, it's not easy to go and win the Supreme on the back of one run, or if you make your hurdles debut in the new year. There's not many horses who've done that this century, so I can understand what they're allowed to running. But you say again, and then we'll touch on it. I think you want to touch on the Weatherbys Champion Bumper shortly, but if those two dominate this race, there's obviously nothing unlikely anything's coming stepping forward from here. So we could be in for a slightly different year in terms of the Champion Bumper this year, because we've seen a lot of horses coming out later in the season, whereas in recent seasons, 7 of the past 8 Champion Bumper winners had won either at graded level or listed level on the previous start. So it was becoming more for experience and horses with proven form in the book. But you say, hey, if one of the other less exposed horses steps forward and beats them two, they're going to shoot straight to the top of the market. So that's an option. But you'd imagine conditions look right for a Dream to Share. And people saying he's been off a while, which is obviously true, but I can't imagine they'd be risking him if they weren't fully happy with him, with his well-being at the minute. So I'd expect him to run his race. And certainly of those two at the top of the market, I'd prefer a Dream to Share over Redemption Day, especially on ground if it does continue to drive personally.
Yeah, I find it impossible to take him on here, really. Look, I'm fascinated to see him back out in action, but it's not a race that you can be going in with any real enthusiasm. Jalan Duderi would have been fascinating, but to be fair to Gordon, he'd said all along that once he'd won the last day, that he was going straight to the Cheltenham Festival and wouldn't be lining up here. Why he was still entered, I don't know. Probably just giving themselves the option. Yeah. I was amazed Joystick was good enough to win.
I did quite like the way he travelled in his point to point. I was actually surprised he started off in that race because he looked like he had a bit of pace in. So maybe the sharp conditions might actually suit him. And I'd be interested to see if he can take a step forward. Enable looks more of a stay-in type to me.
He's a coastal Pat. Don't trust him, Paul. Don't trust him. He'll break your heart and your wallet. Of the younger horses, though, who appeals most?
I say the Enable look more of a stay-in type to me. That's not going to butcher his pronunciation now, but Sherabo and Meishan. Emmet Mullen's horse was quite good when he beat the ill-fated DB Cooper. Yeah. I thought he looked quite good, but both his bumper and point-to-point form on heavy ground, so bit of an unknown there. The obvious one is You Ought to Know. We obviously haven't seen him for a while. He won a couple of bumpers in May, and I think it was June time. I think he won a Kilbeggan first time out where he beat Croke Park, who's enhanced the form. And back in third that day, Joshua the Flow. I know he was a bit disappointed at Down Royal recently, but he has won a couple of races. He's also monitored closely since he ran behind Little Miss Dante at Ayr. He's now raced 121, so it gives you a good level of form. He was beating 17 lengths, so I think You Ought to Know. I think the plan with him probably would have been to avoid the depths of the winter anyway, because he's done well on good ground, and his pedigree would suggest that he wants a decent surface. So he'd be the one who'd be most interesting, and the one with the potential maybe to put it up to them. But it'd take a hell of a performance off a layoff to come and beat last year's champion bumper winner off level weight. So
we're both expecting a Dream to Share to win this race. Obviously, that's going to have no impact whatsoever on Cheltenham. There's the Mares race a day later. Roar Vega is obviously fascinating if she takes her chance in that race, and if she's going to be able to live up to her illustrious stable companion Facile Vega by going and winning a champion bumper, maybe relegate one this race before going on to win the champion bumper, as was said earlier on. What is your overall thoughts on the Weatherbys champion bumper market as things stand?
I don't think there's been an outstanding performer really, and I say normally the way the trends have gone in recent years, you're looking for a horse with proven form in the book, but say if that's going to be broken this year, could well be it, because we've seen a lot of better bumper horses come out in recent weeks, the likes of a couple that Willie had introduced recently who've shot towards the head of the market and things. So I think a lot of horses are going to be going there in terms of limited experience. Whether Sunday's race has an impact on it, I'm not sure. Maybe if Aurora Vega wins, but Willie's got 4 in that race. The one I liked there was Mongivello for Sam Munier and Isaac Swade. So he thought she travelled well in her point to point, didn't look to avoid the pace, was pitched into a listed event when she split 2 potentially nice mares. First time out under rules, then she went to Down Royal, won by 30 in lengths, and won in a canter really on the 26th of December. The horse who finished second to her that day then came out and ran well, finishing much closer to the well-touted Romeo Coolio, who's fairly high up in the betting, obviously, for the champion bumper. So I think she might be the one to take a look at on Sunday. She might well enter the picture then. I don't know, she could be one. Again, she could be another one like Maureen, who's considered for the mares events at Aintree and Punchestown.
I'm still very interested in Aurora Vega, which I think is a really exciting horse going forward. But can she do the same thing that her stable companion and brother did, win at the Dublin Racing Festival, then go on to win at Cheltenham? We shall see. Brief detour to Sandown, because we get a real treat in the UK. The Virgin Bet Sicily Isles Novice Chase. Wouldn't this race have been ideal for Gaelic Warrior? Right-handed track, intermediate trip.
Yeah.
I don't get it personally, and it's good to soft ground as well, so the ground would have been ideal for him. He would have had to face Hermes Allen, though, and while he was battered by Ile Francais in the Cotto Star Novice Chase, who murdered him, he's still a very, very exciting prospect in my mind. Jello, who was terribly unlucky the other day when sent off favourite against JPR1, came unstuck when murdered at the first fence. Charlie Deutsch on board for Venetia Williams. La Patreon, unbeaten at the track and a Grade 1 winner last time, beating Colonel Harry, who is good the last day, but I don't see any reason why he turned the form around. And there's Nickelback, who's the outside of the field for Sarah Humphrey, but is no back number by any means, although was absolutely spanked by Hermes Allen on his chasing debut earlier in the season. What do you make of that race?
It's not a bad renewal, I don't think. Say the market looks about right. I think Hermes Allen deserves to be favourite. I think coming back in triple suits him. I say he was good when he beat Nickelback at Newbury in the Grade 2 first time out. He jumped well that day. I thought he ran well in the Quarto Star of the Felton, to be honest.
I'd agree.
He was the only horse who managed to get near that winner. He's an absolute monster. I thought it was a good run. I think coming back on a stiff track like Sandown, where there's a lot of emphasis on jumping, I think the conditions of the race on Saturday will suit him. Drying ground perfectly fine for him as well. I think he seems versatile in that regard, and I think the market looks right with Le Patron and Jello as the main market rivals. So Le Patron, he's obviously got the course form in the book. He's won twice there. He won a course and distance novice handicap time before beating Blow Your Wad, who came out and won at Kempton before running behind Ginny's Destiny on Trials Day, and what was a decent race. And then, as you've already touched upon, he beat Colonel Harry, and I can't see that form being turned around myself neither. Colonel Harry, even though he won, he beat Trelawney at Weatherby then the next time, but Trelawney was out to his right and gave away a lot of ground that day, and Colonel Harry only just beat him really. So I'd like to see Hermes Allen win. St. Paul's seems to have a fairly good team of novice chasers this year, so it'd be interesting to see if he goes and wins that, where he's going to fit in, because obviously Ginny's Destiny's got on the Turners. I couldn't imagine Hermes Allen stepping up in terms of to the round advisory with Stay Away Faye. So it might be that he goes double-handed in the Turners, or indeed one of them waits for entry, possibly.
Well, that's funny, because I think it's going to be the other way. I think Hermes Allen will go for the Brown Advisory and will take on Stay Away Faye there. Yeah, I do. I don't think Stay Away Faye is fast enough to win a Brown Advisory. His best chance of winning at Cheltenham is the Amateur Riders race. And Paul Nicholls has got a terrible record in that race, but the Old Course, 3 miles around the Old Course at Cheltenham, taking on a horse of Grange Clare West's quality, taking on a Hermes Allen class horse, I don't think Stay Away Faye will be suited to that at all. Possible. I thought he ran well last week. I thought, as you say, I think the new course probably would suit him better, being a more galloping course. But yes, I thought he travelled. He was a little bit in snatches, but he came back on the bridle, turning for home, and he's probably the last off it really in the end. And you think, talking literally on official figures and things, he's rated 159 now. He'd probably be rated high enough if he runs to that level of form to win. I'd probably say 8 out of 10 Brown Advisories, but as you say, conditions will be slightly different on the sharper course. You don't know what the ground will be like, obviously. I think he does want an extreme test of stamina, but I think it's been evident from early in the season that the National on Chase wasn't really an option for him. Yeah, they just have no interest in going for that race whatsoever. And of course, Harry Cobden couldn't ride him in that, but it's going to be, they have to get there. But Ginny's Destiny looks ideal for the Turners. If Hermes Lane comes through this, then he's going to be ideal, I think, for the Brown Advisory. But we shall see. We'll see how it all pans out. Sunday. And it kicks off with the clash that I really didn't want. Gaelic Warrior versus Factifile. Oh, no. This is good for you because you've backed Gaelic Warrior in an Ante-Post double with Marine Nationale for Cheltenham, Marine Nationale for the Arkle, Gaelic Warrior for the Turners. Bad for me and Katie and George and everybody who's followed us in, because I'm convinced Factifile will be going for the Turners and I think he'll win it. I think he's the horse who can beat Gaelic Warrior this weekend as well. He doesn't like going left. He can win left-handed. Obviously, he won handicap hurdle at Leopardstown's DRF last year.
He was pretty right that day, though, the straight, wasn't he?
Yeah, Lydia Hislop and Ruby Walsh did a visual comparison of the Irish champion hurdle, Facile Vega's run in the Tattersalls 2 mile grade 1, with Gaelic Warrior winning the handicap hurdle. And Facile Vega finished before Gaelic Warrior crossed the line. So he was a good winner of a handicap hurdle, but he's just compromised going left-handed. I see him as an exceptional horse going right-handed, compromised going left-handed. He's more likely to get away with it at the DRF, where there's plenty of opportunity to run in a straight line and jump in a straight line, whereas at Cheltenham, you're constantly on the turn. You're constantly turning left, and that won't suit Gaelic Warrior going right-handed.
I think that's why they've alluded to the Turners rather than the Arkle. I think people would even say, and even if he had taken on Marine Nationale, I was listening to Joe Chambers on a podcast the other day, and they were kind of hinting that even if he would have taken on Marine Nationale and gone close, or even it wouldn't have been a given that he would have gone for the Arkle at Cheltenham. That's all irrelevant now anyway. Obviously, he wasn't declared this morning for that race, so I think the Turners on the new course, which obviously is a bit more galloping, was the reason given. It seems to be Patrick and Ruby have both spoken at that in length in various interviews, so I think that is the race he'll go for. It is a slight concern, like you say, at Leopardstown, the back straight is a lot more straight, as the jockeys say, but I think there's the option there as well. You've seen at Christmas the way Paul went wide on quite a few horses, Grange Clare West, Gallop and Deschamps wide into the straight. You could go on the outside wing really, and then take that route. So he'd be giving up ground in terms of when he's going around the bends, but at least in his fences he'd be on the wide outside. So I'd be surprised if Factifile could beat him, to be honest. I know people were getting carried away. I know you were really impressed. I like this performance at Christmas, but for me it wasn't on the same level. I think it must have been after Marine Nationale one. I think I posted a tweet about that being spoilt in the novice chase division with LA France, Gaelic Warrior, Marine Nationale, and the amount of people who replied with Factifile, and I was like, well, I wouldn't have put them in that bracket personally myself at that stage. Like, but
I would.
We shall see. Listen, he did nothing wrong. I like the way he jumped. I didn't think it was the strongest beginner's chase in the world. I like Grange Clare West at Christmas, to be honest. And the one thing with I know that was like churned out a lot in the build-up to it, but it was true that the season before he won his maiden hurdle and he struggled in two starts afterwards, and it was only when he arrived at Punchestown fresh that he bounced back to form. So it was good to see him put 2 back-to-back performances together, because he was good on debut and he was really good. And I don't think coming back in trip from the 3 miles of the Neville hotels, I don't think that's too much of an inconvenience to him. So anyone who's in behind him, I'd be surprised if they were able to turn the form around. I did notice just before we come on air that Corbett's Cross, I know he's obviously not going to Sandown, he's been given an entry on Wednesday at Fairyhouse in a rated chase, so maybe that's on Wednesday over 3 miles, so maybe that's a possibility for him, so perhaps he won't turn up. The one at lightly bigger odds, and obviously he's got plenty of ground to make up on Grange Clare West, who I'd be interested to see how he ran, would be Favori Deschamps do, because I was quite taken with his win at Punchestown a time before for all. I can see that the race possibly fell apart a bit, but I thought his first 2 starts over fences were quite encouraging, and he did look a chasing type. I was expecting him to improve this season. He faded a little bit last time, so I'd want to see him show a little bit more than he did over Christmas, but more with a view to the spring festivals, really, because I think stepping back up in trip will really suit him. He looks an out-and-out stayer, really.
I wonder if Corbett's Cross does take up that engagement in Fairyhouse. Does this mean George Gorman's theory that he's going to be JP's National Hunt Chase horse, in which case Derek O'Connor would be on board? Does this give further credence to that?
Qualify. Yeah. He'd be qualified already, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He ran over 3 miles last time, so he will be qualified. But it would be an option. It'd be an easier stepping stone to Cheltenham.
4 winners of this race have gone on to win at the Cheltenham Festival, including 2 of them in the National Hunt Chase. Rathvinden in 2018, who unseated his rider, and Gerard de Menil ran in this race last year. Of course, both of those horses winning for Patrick Mullins. We've been trying to figure out who Patrick Mullins' ride in the National Hunt Chase is going to be. Maybe it's going to be Nick Rocket, who'll be beaten here, but then pick up valuable experience and head on to Cheltenham. But
if he runs here, he won't be able to run in the. He won't be able to run the National Hunt Chase if he runs in this. So I don't think he'll run.
Why?
Because he hasn't run beyond 2 mile 5.5. You've got to run over 2.7.5. So he will have to go to. I think there's a graded race at. It's a 10 up at Naas.
Oh, you are right.
Sorry. When's the Navan next Sunday? Is it week Sunday? I think the 10 up. I think that's his last chance to qualify. I think. So I would imagine that if they're thinking about the National Hunt Chase for him, he'll be safe for next week.
Keep an eye on that then, because if he is declared for this race, then that's him.
He's not going to be running. Yeah, because he's not going to fit another run in time, is he? So that's something to bear in mind if anyone's looking Ante-Post.
Good knowledge, Paul Ferguson. Good knowledge, my friend. Let me hit you with some stats about Fact to File. Racing Post ratings have Gaelic Warrior 164, which is the exact same figure they've got Fact to File on. Time Form give Gaelic Warrior 169p. They give Fact to File 168p. Two of the biggest ratings organizations in racing have very little or identical ratings for these two horses, and yet Gaelic Warrior is the shorter price for the Turners. This Fact to File, this is Galopin de Champ 2.0. JP cloned him, gave him a different pedigree, and presented him as this guy. And I'm convinced that the reason Dream to Share was bought last year.
Galopin de Champ wouldn't have been beaten by American Mike on debut. Come on.
American Mike's a funny old horse. When he's on a going day, he's very, very good.
Yeah, he was actually on that day. Like,
yeah, he was
actually on a going day that day.
He got out of his bed that day. He had his Weatherbys. He felt like it. He just didn't feel like it at all in the Faugheen Novice Chase. He's just a weird horse, American Mike. Very, very talented, but dearie me, he can throw in a bad one. Look, I think Fact to File is a serious, serious racehorse. I'm convinced the Turners is the race they're going to go for. Everything that Willie Mullins has said and the way he's been communicating about him, particularly on race day, he's been emphasizing about not really wanting to go 3 miles with him this year, but seeing him as a Gold Cup horse for the future. Sir de Champ ran in the Turners, Galopin de Champ ran in the Turners, and Fact to File is going the exact same Galopin de Champ route, winning that Novice Chase, the very same Novice Chase at the Leopardstown Christmas meeting, then coming here, winning, and then going to Cheltenham. Hopefully the landing gear actually comes out and he goes and wins this time. So I'm with Fact to File. No issue with him going left-handed. Gaelic Warrior compromised. Also, Paul Townend probably feels he's got a better chance of being able to win on Gaelic Warrior here than he does about taking on Marine Nationale, because Fact to File is always going to be Mark Walsh's ride. So Fact to File for me. What about you?
Gaelic Warrior.
It's on, baby. It's on. A good run from Grange Clare West. He might win this, but second, third place to Gaelic Warrior or Fact to File, not beaten far, would still have him as a serious player for the Brown Advisory.
I'd prefer Grange Clare West to Fact to File myself, to be honest, on Sunday. But again, I've still got the doubts. I would really love to see Grange Clare West put in a third run together, and then he's clearly matured. He looks a more mature horse now. He should do his 8 compared to like Gaelic Warriors.
Yeah.
Fact to File's only 7, and obviously missed the year. Not missed the year, but he skipped his Novice Hurdle campaign, which I think is to do with his age and his physique, obviously, which isn't about. And I'd say that's got to be a huge positive for him as well, really, because Willie doesn't do that often. And there will plenty of comparisons will be made with Florida Pearl and things, but yeah, I'll be looking forward to that race actually on Sunday. That's one of the. Oh,
that's a cracker.
Certainly one of the more exciting races of the week.
Yeah. By the way, I have absolutely no interest in backing Fact to File at 15-8 this weekend. Zero, because if Gaelic Warrior does turn,
you're just loading up for the Turners.
That's exactly. I'm backing him again. Like, this is either going to be all duck or Tesco noodles for dinner, because I am going back in again for the. There is still 10-1 available with a couple of firms. Most of them have cut them to pretty short prices, but I think the average price is 5s. But there's a couple of firms who are going. Isn't there? Yes, you can get 10-1 with Coral, Betfair, Everybody else has cut him down to 8-1 for the turners.
Yeah, all the others most of them are not running no bet now, aren't they? The ones who are 4 or 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, but you're taking 4-1 and 5-1 then, in which case I have no interest. But 8-1, if you can get that, I still think that's very fair, and I'm more than happy to stick with them. Fact to file for me, it's going to be a cracking race, but keep an eye if Corbett's Cross or Nick Rocket are declared for this race, then Corbett's Cross is qualified, so he's okay, but Nick Rocket...
he's all right, yeah. Nick Rocket would be...
We'll move on to the Tattersalls Ireland 50th Derby Sale, Novice Hurdle Grade 1. Of course, all the Caldwell horses will be going through that sale. 29 of them. You going to be throwing your hand into the ring there? Going to be bidding for any of the Caldwell horses?
Yeah.
Kind of messes up their Cheltenham preparation, not being able to take part in the DRF. But anyway, we'll...
Yeah, you know what? The only thing I was thinking, like, and there's a couple of... if we go on to this Novice Hurdle now, there's a couple who ran in that Caldwell Potter race, and it's say when we were talking about Predators Gold, I would be slightly concerned about how hard the race is. How desperate ground out there, and he just seemed to be walking. Some of them in behind. So when we come on to this race here, who was in there, Daddy Longlegs was pulled up, Absurd as well. So it'd be interesting to see how the likes of Predators Gold go ahead of these running in. It might end up being a blessing in disguise for Caldwell Potter. Just in terms of, like, sometimes if they have really had a hard race, there might be nothing in that at all, but it's just something I had in the back of my mind. He looks like a horse. I know he'd just digressing slightly, but he looks like a horse who'll definitely appreciate going up and trip on slightly better ground. So I'd imagine whoever his new owner is, Gordon, will be praying he stays in the yard, and I think then he'll be aimed at the race formerly known as the Ballymore, the Bear and Big.
Yeah. You would imagine Noel and Valerie Moran will be throwing their hand into the ring there to get hold of him. I'd be amazed if he's not still a Gordon Elliott horse.
Yeah, maybe JP.
Yeah, JP would be another. He'd be the really obvious one to buy him. But whoever Gordon's not bidding on, they're the ones you just forget about. Whoever he is bidding for, and that'll definitely be one of them. We'll see. Ballyburn, even money favourite for this race. The conventional wisdom is if he wins this, he goes for the Supreme. I don't think that's the case. Sir Gerard won this race.
Gerard won it, didn't he?
Yeah, Sir Gerard won this and went for the Ballymore. So don't think that it's absolutely certain that he's going to line up in the Supreme if he wins this race. And Sir Gerard won this by 6 lengths.
Yeah. I think one thing's sure, if he does win, he'd be clear favourite in both races, I'd say.
Oh, 100%. Like, well, he should be, in my opinion, he should be clear favourite anyway.
If he puts daylight between himself and the field on Sunday, I think he'll be like clear favourite. And then it goes to... It's kind of like, will he kind of then they'll be shuffling the pack, won't he, and seeing how strong do they like mystical power. Is there anyone else? The one who won last week, I thought was quite good in the week, Ricky Dickey.
Yeah.
He looked quite good, like, and he liked the ground. I think he could come back and trip. Again, digressing here slightly, the one thing I was slightly disappointed about this race was the fact that no flyers on him. Wasn't left in the confirmation stage, because obviously his point form reads well, beating a Grade 1 winner, and I thought he was really good on debut. I was really looking forward to him taking on Ballyburn, and he wasn't in the 5-day declarations. He reportedly goes to Punchestown on the 18th of February for a listed Novice Hurdle.
In a way I prefer that, because I don't really like the fact that you're throwing him into a Grade 1 on just his second start, and that's just not an Edward O'Grady thing to do either.
No, yeah. But then I was trying to think what else might go against him. Perhaps that Ricky Dickey. Willie said he definitely wants to get another run in. Maybe he'll take him on there, and then could be a good race. I think it's the race that moved. It was either Nace or Navan. It's been switched. I think Imagine won it last year. I think it's the same race I read.
Let's deal with the horses we've got for this race, shall we? Ballyburn, even money favoured. Farm Glory 4-1. Slade Steel for the Henry de Bromhead team, a 7-1 shot. Daddy Longlegs, who was pulled up, as Paul was saying earlier on, in the Future Champions Novice Hurdle, he was very well backed for that, into 9-4 in the face of strong opposition for other horses that day as well. He might bounce back here. 12s. King of Kingsfield has the handicap hurdle as an alternative engagement at 12-1 shot. Is this just a case of Ballyburn is going to show everybody how good he is, or is Farm Glory being underestimated again?
I think he's definitely being underestimated. Whether he can beat Ballyburn's another matter, but I think Farm Glory at the minute is the horse who's got the best form and offer. And I was actually looking at him in the market. He's shortened a bit in the Ante-Post market for the Supreme. He's coming from like 16s and 20s to 10s in recent days, which is probably where he should be. he was totally underestimated after he had that fall at Aintree. I think for me, I know people have different opinions, and we've seen that Django by might have hung on, but he looked like he was cantering to me.
He'd have won.
I think he'd have won. Yeah, I think he would have won. Obviously, it wasn't an ideal result for Sean. He's still been on the sidelines since. So, I think he's the horse with the best form in the book. He's beat King of Kingsfield in that Royal Bond, which people questioned at the time. Looks a little bit better since he came out. But for me, that Aintree run was the one. I think he was definitely going to win that race. I thought Ballyburn. I thought he ran well against Firefox. Obviously, I think Firefox underperformed in the Law as an ace, and then he obviously won in a canter last time. And that form was obviously advertised by another horse who I'm not going to be able to pronounce properly, Cleatus Poulor, who he beat 25 lengths, who came out and won in the week. I'm sure that's not how you say it, but
that pronunciation is almost as good as Johnny Dineen's pronunciation.
And yeah. Cuthbert Dibble will be saying next year. Another winner in the week. Back to Ballyburn, but yeah, he could go and win this, but I wouldn't be backing him at that price personally against Farron Glory and in what could be a relatively deep race. I like Slade Steele as a horse as well. Slightly not sure about him dropping back in trip, but he did beat King of Kingsfield. But at the time, I think that was when King of Kingsfield was still being, just before they realised change of tactics on him. He was third, of course, to Ballyburn as bumper. Last season, so that bit of form. But this, again, I think this race could cut up a little bit. King of Kingsfield obviously got different options. Brighter Days Ahead, I like her a lot, but I'm not sure she'd be running it. I'm not sure they'd allow her to take on the boys here. Maybe they will. Gold Dance haven't run since arriving for France Predators. Gold runs elsewhere. That Key de Bourbon, I thought he's had the 4 runs now. I thought, don't know what mark he's got, but I thought he might be one. Who they've got him.
He's the Martin Pipe horse.
The Martin Pipe. Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's the Martin Pipe horse.
Obviously, depending on what rating he gets, there's a few others, didn't it? I thought one was massively overpriced here. I'm not saying the potential he can win, but this could cut up to less than 8 runners at 66 to 1. Jit Lange was just a horse of interest. I know someone came over because I was quite keen on the sire, Caractère, after seeing LA Francais do what he done in last spring in France over hurdles, and then early on in the season over fences. It was a sire I've taken note of. It's obviously by the same sire. Came over. He'd run once on the flat and once over hurdles at Auteuil, and he beat Samui at Tipperary in May. So obviously the form's probably been forgotten about it, but Samui ran a similar race behind Mystical Power at Galway. So the form's not totally. I know he was getting a fair bit away from him at the time, but he looked a horse all speed that day, I thought, on good ground. So if it dries out again by Sunday, I was thinking, I went back today and watched his Auteuil second. He was beaten by a horse called Gust of Wind, who was rated 135 with Willie, obviously, sadly, no longer with us. Back in 5th that day was Jazzy Matty, who won the Boodles Fred Winter last year. So there was a bit of depth to the form. He travelled well out the back. He was given plenty to do that day. Over 2 mile 2, and then I thought the way he won at Tipperary on better ground on a sharp 2 miles, he looked more of a speed horse. So I say whether he's an intended runner, I don't know, but I was surprised to see him 66 to 1. If he'd declared, he'd be nowhere near that price because the field will cut up, and it wouldn't be a total surprise to see him running well.
Yeah, I still think Daddy Longlegs is a horse who remains with potential. He just didn't handle the ground at Leopardstown, which was awful. It was a horrible ground.
Again,
the most notable thing about that is the fact that he was backed into 9-4 favourite for the future champions Novice Hurdle. Yeah. Down memory lane had been heavily backed in the days leading up to it, then drifted, and then was heavily supported just before the off. And obviously he didn't handle the conditions either. That performance beating Cletus Poulor on debut reads pretty well now, considering what that horse did the other day. Yeah. I wouldn't give up on him. Just remember Champagne Fever. I was talking to Gavin Lynch yesterday, and he pointed out Champagne Fever was beaten in the Lauders of Naas Grade 1 Novice Hurdle by 40 lengths, almost pulled up. Bounced back to win the Spring Novice Hurdle that season. Maybe Daddy Longlegs can bounce back here as well. It's going to be a big bounce back, but he's very, very interesting. Look, I think Ballyburn's the one who's going to take the beating. I do think he will win a Grade 1 Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham, be it the Ballymore or the Supreme. I genuinely don't know which way they're going to go, and I wouldn't be confident that it's going to be the Supreme on the back of this, given what happened with Sir Gerard. But Far and Glory is going to set a big standard, and Slade Steel, very, very interesting, and very interesting for the Ballymore as well. It's more of a race I'm happy to sit back, enjoy with a coffee, have my heart rate absolutely go bonkers as I'm watching it, and then take an interest in Cheltenham afterwards. That might seem counterintuitive to some, but bubbles are going to be burst here, and I think whoever wins it will be winning at the Cheltenham Festival. 7 horses from this race have gone on to win at Cheltenham, but only 1 has gone on to win after the Ladbrokes Dublin Chase. Pop quiz, hot shot. Name the horse who ran in the Ladbrokes Dublin Chase and went on to win at the Cheltenham Festival, and the year.
Well, it can't be the Champion Chase because they're nil from 4. The record there was that Aplutard, was it? Before the Ryanair, no.
It was Min in the 2020 Ryanair Chase. He finished second in this.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he was beaten in the. He was beaten twice after winning it in the Champion Chase, wasn't he?
Yeah, but
Composoir was beaten twice in it as well.
Oh,
and obviously, Gentleman to Me didn't make the race last year, did he?
No, he didn't.
He was ruled out.
Deadly in Ireland, awful in the UK. El Fabiolo, only second start of the season. Nicky Henderson's getting a lot of stick about Constitution Hill. El Fabiolo's only been seen once so far, but at least we are going to see him twice, Nicky. The 11-4 on favourite. Dino Blue could get into a really nice rhythm out in front and might be quite difficult to peg back for Mark Walsh. And if she did win this race, could she very well become JP's main player in the Champion Chase and have John Bond supplemented for the Ryanair? Well, I don't know. We'll see. Gentleman to Me, who stepped up significantly from his run at Christmas last year to go and win here. Will that be history repeating? Captain Guinness, who was tipped by Tom Siegel for the Champion Chase recently enough. Fast or Slow has this as a potential engagement as well. And then there's the old enigma, Saint Roy. Is this just a case of El Fabiolo struts around, bolts up, and then conquers everyone in the Queen Mother Champion Chase?
You'd like to think so. I'd like to see a nice round of jumping from him. Obviously, he's not always been totally foot perfect, but he was very good, I thought, in the Irish Arkle last year. And if he's anywhere near his best, like he was in that race or the Arkle, I think he ain't going to have any problem beating Dino Blue. I just don't see. And you said there's a chance that she might end up being. I'd be shocked if she doesn't run in the mare's chase, to be honest. A solid round of jumping would see El Fabiolo home, but we did see last week at Cheltenham, and that's not a given with these Champion Chase contenders.
It's an unusual time for the Champion Chasers. Normally they're foot perfect jumpers, although Moscow Flyer could batter one.
Yeah, but he didn't. If Moscow Flyer was unusual, he didn't really make a catalogue of mistakes. It was just
he clatter one.
But when he jumped
every fourth start,
he jumped very well. So El Fabiolo is a bit of a bruiser, isn't he? He's like he just looks like he doesn't hold much regard for the obstacles, really. So, but he's a very, very good horse. I would expect a clear round of jumping should be good enough to take care of his stablemates, and onwards and upwards to Cheltenham.
Could Dino Blue head for the Champion Chase if she was to pull off the upset and win this?
But depend how the circumstances take off. Obviously, if she beat El Fabiolo on merit, maybe you'd think about it. But I don't really see it. I don't see. I thought, like looking back at last week as well. If you're thinking about it because of the owner, because of McManus and John Bonner, I thought John Bond done incredibly well to finish as close as he did, given the mistakes he made. Not just the serious one, 4 out. He just, in general, he just didn't jump well, and he still almost won the race. He probably would have done if he wouldn't have made the mistake at the last. So, whether that was too hard a race to have as a prep, it probably wasn't ideal. But I don't see him going anywhere else. And people calling for the Ryanair and things, I think the time we'll get to see him step up and trip possibly is the Mellon at Aintree, unless he goes for the Celebration Chase again. Digressing here, but I'd see Dino Blue's a short price favourite for the Mare's Chase again. Like Lossiemouth, she's going to have to prove her stamina at Cheltenham. When she gets there again, that's debate for another day. But I can't see it putting it up to El Fabiolo. If El Fabiolo's on the form, I say that we saw at this meeting last year and in the Arkle, I think he'll win comfortably.
Yeah, look, I think he's going to win as well. He was a brilliant winner of the Irish Arkle at this meeting last year. He was foot perfect at Cork. He wasn't stunning that day, but did what was required.
No. A bit work.
He is the one who sets the standard for the 2 mile chase division. You want to see him win.
He's quite a robust looking horse, isn't he? I've only seen him a couple of times in the flesh, but he's quite well built. So I imagine maybe he takes a bit of getting fit compared to some of the others.
Yeah, he's possibly that makes a good bit of sense actually. But I think he's going to take the world a beating in this race.
Yeah,
what a shocker.
So I'd imagine he'd take a big step forward.
Favorite is going to take the world a beating. A gentleman to me, he's going to be better in this race than he was last year.
We get a bit of a good next race. We're going on the same price. We get a bit of stick over in England for this uncompetitive racing. Would we not?
Well, I wonder what Twitter is going to be like when Willie Mullins keeps winning all these races and it's another trophy being handed to Paul Townend and another trophy being handed to Willie Mullins. If people are going to go, hey, hang on a second, I thought this DRF used to be way more competitive than it is. Hey, what's going on here? Although maybe we will see a bit of an upset in the Irish Champion Hurdle. Stateman is the heavy odds-on favourite, 7-2 on. Imperi Pass 4 is Bob Ollinger, 8-1. He's the one that I want to focus on because I think Bob Ollinger, he's the really fascinating horse in this race, as is Imperi Pass. I still don't really understand why Imperi Pass is running in this race and not in the Beulah, because there's no logical reason why Imperi Pass can turn the form around with Stateman. He was well held by him. The ground isn't going to be all that different. It's soft ground. It was soft heavy, to be fair. Maybe that's going to do it. Maybe on the third run of the season in open company, Imperi Pass steps forward. But you know Paul Townend's going to be on Stateman. You had the chance to win an open company in the Beulah, and he's going for the Champion Hurdle. Lossiemouth is not. What was the point in running her in a Champion Hurdle trial and not giving him the opportunity to win an open company? We'll see. Maybe he turns it around. But Bob Ollinger, he came back with a win at Navan. Really good that day when he beat Santa here. People didn't believe it. The form wasn't holding up, but you can't question New Year's Day. He's absolutely bolted up in the Raquel, and now Maurice Rock has gone and beaten You Wear It Well to frank the form. This is the horse that might just be able to ran a blinder. That's a great point as well. So Bob Ollinger, this is the horse that can give Constitution Hill the bloody nose in the Champion Hurdle, but he's got to come through this test first of all, Paul.
Yeah, coming back in trip on quicker ground, that'd be a big concern for me, I'd say. Yeah, he's only ran twice over 2 miles in his career. Even his bumper was over 2 mile too, but he ran twice. He finished second to Fernie Hollow in that maiden hurdle, and he was beaten at I.N.H last year. I think it was in the Limestone Lad by Echoes in Rain. I think he's in a much better place now, just maybe mentally as well as physically, Bob Ollinger. And it was good to see. He backed that up. Obviously, it wasn't great for me to see being there with brewing up a storm on New Year's Day, but it was nice to see him back to somewhere near his best. So from that perspective, I'd like to see him go and perform and again give the form another boost. As you say, Maurice Rock and a strong leader give that form a relatively solid look. But I don't think he's going to have the pace really to live with the top two personally on better ground around Leopardstown.
Ooh,
I think the ideal race for him and Imperi Pass is the entry hurdle really.
Yeah.
Now in the spring, well, fair play to them because he could have gone maybe for the Boyne hurdle, could he? 2 mile 4, so but fair play the pitching him in against Stateman. I think Stateman was comprehensively on top of it in Imperi Pass at Christmas, I thought in the end. He thought he came there with every chance. And I thought, no, I don't really. I thought that'll give him a good ride and give him every chance, and he just couldn't get to him.
Yeah.
So I think Stateman's just a really
cracking ride. He's produced him at exactly the right time to go and win the race. He's moved up really strongly, and Stateman just goes, bye-bye.
Yeah, Stateman's just a really good horse, and another one he's probably slightly underappreciated, really, just because of the level of Constitution Hill's at the minute. And maybe he didn't perform to his very best in the Champion Hurdle last year. I think he was ridden a little bit further back than would be ideal. I'm sure this year, if all goes to plan on Sunday, I'm sure in the Champion Hurdle he'll be ridden a little bit more positively, like he is on home soil. And yeah, just struggling to see how Imperi Pass can turn that form around really on Sunday. Yeah,
I can't see it at all. But hey, they're going to give it a go, so best of luck to them. And I'm sure that the Double Green team would really like that win, particularly seeing as they could have won the Beulah, and they would have won the Beulah. Bob Ollinger for me, I think he's a bet in this race at 8-1. Small stakes, very small stakes. But I am going to take a chance with him.
Even though he never won at the distance.
Don't worry about that, son.
No.
Don't worry about that.
No. He did look. He won the. To be fair, he won the Relkiel for pace because it was a slowly run race. I thought we had a chance turning for him, and then he squoze up the inside of us. So
yeah, well, for those who don't know, you're involved.
We'll get there in the national spirit.
Yeah, you're the race planner for the owner of Brewing Up a Storm. So when Bob Ollinger is getting boxed in and Rachel's in trouble and there's nowhere to go, you were probably thinking, oh, lovely. And that emphasizes just how much Bob Ollinger is back, baby. Because once he's in the clear, she never panicked. And once he gets into the clear, it's game over.
No. He won that race for speed, to be fair. To say it was a slowly run race and the form's working out a little bit. But I just have my question mark back at 2 miles against Stateman, who's a genuine top class 2 miler. But we'll see.
Bob Ollinger won the Ballymore the season before Stateman won the county, wasn't it? When he won the county, he was winning the race that Galop on the Champ should have won. In fact, Henry de Bromhead was telling me on the Final Furlong podcast that once Galop on the Champ launched to jump the last, he turned and walked away. And then here's the crowd go nuts.
The screens went off that day as well.
Yeah, the screens went off, so he didn't see any of it. Went off, and then, by the time he gets down to the front, Rachel's coming towards him with the tricolour on her back, and he's like, "Wait, what? What the hell's happened?" I think it'd be magic. That day, he destroyed Brave Man's Game in the Ballymore. He looked like Constitution Hill. He looked like the horse Constitution Hill became. And if he can bounce back.
Obviously, it's disappointing for us to be beaten on New Year's Day, but it was nice. From the sports perspective, to see Bob Ollinger back again, another horse who's back. Obviously, he's had issues physically as well, so to see him put 2 back-to-back performances together was really good. And he jumped. I thought he jumped particularly well at Cheltenham as well. I think his jumping was really good. So maybe we'll see him. Maybe he's peaking again. So
the second and the fourth of Frank the Farm, Paul. This is an easy game. Bob Ollinger's don't take him to the Boyne Hurdle. Run him in this. Come on, Rob. Come on, Brian Atchison. Let's go. Bob Ollinger for the win.
He'll go. He's going to run it.
Bob Ollinger for the win. Let's go. Big upset. And then, Nicky, we're coming for you with Constitution Hill. Come on, the Bob. All right. What is with a view to Cheltenham, who is the one horse that you would advise Final Furlong podcast viewers and listeners to back now before the DRF or before the Sicily Isles Novice Chase with a view to the Cheltenham Festival?
You're going to go mad. Honestly, I struggled to find a horse for Cheltenham just this week. It's an Ante-Post really is all about timing in terms of
true.
A lot of the markets now are completely formed in terms of the only way if you've got a strong opinion on even if you've got a strong opinion on Ballyburn, you can't know for definite where he's going to go. And I was just struggling. The likes of say the Novice Chasers, I think the 2 favourites are going to be hard to beat. How much are they going to shorten in their respective markets already trading?
If Fact-to-File wins, he's favourite for the Turners.
There you go. He'd be one if you were like you, if you were in a Fact-to-File camp. Back in, there's that to bet, because if he turns Gaelic Warrior over, he's favourite. So the
dream's alive.
I'll advise you to back Fact-to-File for the Turners again if you believe that he's going to beat Gaelic Warrior. So my best bets for the weekend come from elsewhere. I think there's trying to find a little bit more competitive stuff.
Okay, who is your best bet for the weekend?
I've got 2. Got one on Saturday, so he's been declared. A horse called Wellington Arch in the bumper at Sandown, who's trained by John Joe O'Neill. John Joe's got a nice horse running the big handicap. It'll actually called St. Davy, but I think the ground drying out there. I had that race between him and Ed Keeper. But the ground drying out there concerns me a little bit, whereas the bumper horse Wellington Arch, he won on good ground at Worcester early in the season. Then he ran against a nice horse, Paul Nicholls, called Regent Stroll. When I was down at Paul's in the summer, he was the one unraced horse at the time that, he just physically to look at, he was stunning. He goes for the valuable DBS sales bumper at Newbury in March, I think it is. So keeping the notebook, he won the Ascot race. Wellington Arch was held up by John Joe that day off a relatively slow pace, and he was conceding weight to the front too. So I think the fact that he finished third, he ran well in defeat. It's a decent looking bumper. There's a few previous winners in there, but I think he'll take a bit of beating. And then on Sunday, obviously we haven't got declarations yet, but there's a horse called Sleeping Satellite who's entered in the 2.5 mile handicap hurdle at Musselburgh. Currently only rated 108. I thought he might have gone novice handicap chasing this year. That's why I included them in the book, but he was kept to hurdles. He looked like he needed the run first time out, and then he ran well at Doncaster against the horse who was particularly well handicapped for Paul Nicholls, Ray Middleton, but I've been waiting for him to step up in trip. He wants drying ground, so he held an entry over 2 miles on Saturday, and he wasn't declared today, which is a positive. So I assume maybe they've got their eye on Sunday's race, 2.5 miles around a sharp track like that, on drying ground, I think will be absolutely ideal for them. So sleeping satellite at Musselburgh on Sunday.
I like it. We should play Tasman Archer, but apparently,
I'm not going to sing it for you. So
I think
you might have to
YouTube
play
guidelines means we're not allowed to play anything. They're a bit more boring than Spotify. This is Spotify. If we're just doing this on Spotify, just for the Spotify podcast, I think we could do it. But because it's going on YouTube as well, we can't. So sorry about that.
No one wants to listen to my dulcet tones, honestly.
I don't think you're even allowed to do the karaoke version. That's the sad thing about it. YouTube they don't mess about with this stuff. I think 3-1 about fast or slow is a little bit too big at the weekend, so I'm going to put him in a patent with Bunting at 10-1, who I think is just way too big for the Spring Juvenile Hurdle. And he's drifted out to 10s since we've been talking. He was 8-1. It's proper soft ground at Leopardstown as things stand, so I'm going to stick with that.
Here's me basing all my opinion on its drying ground on my.
Well, maybe it is. Hey, maybe it is. Hey, look, it was a dry day in Ireland today, so this Racing Post currently are saying that's what the going is. Bob Ollinger at 8-1. So Bunting, Bob Ollinger.
He's on. The Bob.
We're on, baby. Bunting and Bob Ollinger. They're the two main plays for me. In fact, to file to win at the Cheltenham Festival for the Turners, specifically the Turners. 8-1. You can still get 10s. 8-1 is widely available. Come on, Mark Walsh. Come on, get it done. Be favoured for the Turners. We're in a glorious position if that happens. And some of the winnings that you have after Paul's expertise can be invested in buying Paul's superb Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. You can get your copy right now at weatherbysshop.co.uk. Use this code FF24CF. Capital letters FF24CF. You get yourself a £5 discount for the print copy, the digital copy, or the bundle. And the bundle is well worth getting because you still get the print copy in your hand and you get access to it in your MacBook, your iPad, your tablet, whatever you want on your phone. Weatherbysshop.co.uk or weatherbysshop.ie. FF24CF, £5 off your purchase of the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide by the superb Paul Ferguson, who will be back on the Final Furlong podcast to talk us through some more Cheltenham chat very, very soon. Paul, all the best for the Dublin Racing Festival weekend, and I hope the preparation for that excellent Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide doesn't blow your head clean off.
Oh, no. We're nearly there now. 10, 11 days left to go, so I will be glad. I will be glad when it's over the line, and then I can actually get some sleep.
Superb. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the Final Furlong podcast. It's much appreciated. If you haven't already, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to us, hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. And we're back with more great content on the show very, very soon, including a leading racehorse owner who'll be joining us on the podcast, an industry special with Sky Sports Racing's Josh Appiaffi, and of course, we're breaking down the Dublin Racing Festival with a view to the Cheltenham Festival. All the key talking points covered right here on the Final Furlong podcast. Have a great weekend. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.